My wife and I grew up in San Diego,
Oh,
born and raised in San Diego, and we lived in Santa Cruz for about 10 years in the 90s, and just have been here ever since.
okay.
Yeah.
You know where's next? Because it sounds like you're looking at
Everywhere. Yeah, not yet. We always say, "Oh, about Costa Rica," or "What about Boulder, Colorado?" We have a list that we haven't really decided yet.
That's cool.
What I would like to do actually just a little bit here, like 3 or 4 months here, 3 or 4 months there, and just it's not really a vacation. You get to know the place, you get to know cafes and restaurants and the people and the hikes and the nature outside of town, but then you get to go explore somewhere else.
It's like the Florida snowbirds.
Yeah,
there's quite a few people who do just that. Half the year one place, half the year
that's the problem, because a beautiful place like Florida in January and February, just like Phoenix is amazing in January and February, 70 degrees. It's like it's been 100 days of over 100 degrees in Phoenix. It's like you can't have 3 months of 110 degrees. So there's always something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Life changes.
Too
Lots of
cold.
opportunities there. I live in Texas, so we have those extreme weathers. New Braunfels. It's right in between San Antonio and Austin.
Oh, okay. Yes. So, got a lot of Meriwethers in San Antonio and in Dallas and Fort Worth and all that.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Well, today we're going to be talking about putting anxiety and leadership to the test. We got Craig Meriwether on here, clinical hypnotherapist. And one of his unique abilities is to help individuals pass their tests. And overcome the anxiety associated with that. So we'll be talking about that too. But before we dive into those subjects, and I also want to give one more caveat, Vision Pros. We're all tested in life. There's lots of different tests that we have to pass, whether it's in front of a boardroom, or it's talking to your boss, or it's a school test. Maybe you have a child who's going through opportunities for testing. There's so many different applications for the realities of how anxiety can get in the way, or prevent us from being able to do what we need to do. So we'll be collaborating about that later in the show. Before we do, again, Craig, what are 3 resources that you recommend for other entrepreneurs or visionaries on their journey? Because you've been building businesses for a while now.
Right. My main resources, I know probably people talk about this book or that book. And I think a lot of people have the books they need to read. I certainly have a stack of 6 or 7 on my bedside that's been sitting there for about a year. And so when I was thinking about this, the resources, really what I wanted to offer to people is ways of getting themselves in state for their day. And that's been probably the most resourceful thing I've been able to do in my life. And whether that's some form of meditation or intentional prayer, or doing something like Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga, or taking a walk outside in the sunshine or in the rain, if that's what it is, a way to settle yourself before you start your day. And I know that's maybe a little difficult when you got 2 or 3 kids, you got to get off to school and you got that meeting right at 9 o'clock. But if there's a way somewhere, even if it's just for 5 minutes, and maybe at a point somewhere during our conversation, Jackson, I can show people a little technique or two that they can do in just 5 minutes to help settle themselves. I think that'd go along with the conversation that we're about to have. But just a little exercise, even if you have 5 minutes. Okay, I get it. You don't have an hour. You don't have an hour and a half. But if you take 5 minutes to settle yourself, put yourself in state with whatever that needs to be. That may be the meeting at 9 o'clock. That may be the parent-teacher conference at 3:30. That may be the family gathering at Thanksgiving dinner. Put yourself in state of who you need to be. Every actor, every singer, every presenter, whether you're Tony Robbins or someone else, puts themselves in state before they walk out into whatever performance, quote unquote, performance they need to give. So what about you? What about putting yourself in some sort of state, just taking a minute? Huge. So that's what I like
Quick question. You name dropped a couple of people. Do you work with those level of individuals?
No, I certainly train with them. I have
Okay.
been following them for quite a number of years, and that's another resource I was about to dive into
Go ahead.
is finding that coach or that mentor. Look, I don't know Tony Robbins personally. I don't have the $1 million to have him his personal cell phone number in my cell phone, but I do follow his stuff amongst many others, the people who resonate with me. And so the next two resources, one is just finding those coaches, whether they're personal growth people or maybe there's more of a spiritual nature, people who can help uh, encourage you. And those are the books to read. Those are the YouTube videos to watch. Finding that group of people, it's that thing of the 5 people you're going to invite to dinner, and it's Abraham Lincoln, and it's Gandhi, it's Mother Teresa, or whoever. Well, who would those people be for you? And maybe make them people you could go watch a YouTube video of. Maybe not somebody so far back in history, but somebody today who inspires you. But then the third resource I'd like to offer to people is creating a mastermind group. And this has helped me so much over the years in terms of just being encouraged and being supported. It's nice maybe if they're in the same field as you, but one of the best mastermind groups I had was just with 2 other people. We met once a week. They weren't really doing the same thing I was doing, but we were there to support and encourage each other. And there's an accountability there that happens. When you tell somebody at your meeting, your gathering, you're hanging out for coffee, you say, well, by next week, I'm going to have 2 more chapters written in my book. By next week, I'm going to have that video made. By next week, I'm going to have my, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok all organized. You better have it done by that next week. Otherwise, you're going to have to explain why that didn't get done. And so there's not only accountability, but they're there to encourage, they're there to support. Yes, there's constructive criticism, but that's what helps you move forward. So while not necessarily resources in the form of books or maybe videos to watch or documentaries to watch, if you were to find a way to put yourself in state and also have those resources of maybe, the mentors, whether you know them personally or not, and create that, if it's possible for you, create that mastermind group. Zoom makes it super easy to find people from around the country, around the world to gather with and encourage each other. And that's what's helped me most of
One of
my
the things I love about what you're doing is your skill set. The things you're talking about nurture a lot of beginners on this journey. You have a big heart for helping people get out of that darkness. I'm going to level up everything that you said a little bit in a controversial style, because it's so important that if you're going for excellence and you're going for that next level, you're the visionary who really wants to bring it to fruition, then a lot of these elements aren't going to get you there. So getting into flow state, absolutely huge. You mentioned the books on the shelves. Most of us have not read the books that we need. That's why we have to keep reading. I remember the E-Myth. I regret not reading that the day that it came across my desk.
Yeah.
I read it 8 years later. Right. Super, super valuable. So definitely make sure that you're diving into those. I know Craig wasn't pulling those away as much as saying, hey, there's other opportunities here too. Coaches and mentors, look at the playing field and see who's actually winning championships. Very few coaches are actually championship level coaches. Most of them are pretenders. Most of them will tell you what you need to do, what you should do, what you have to do. Those are control words. They're control tactics. So knowing how to recognize the difference between somebody who is a championship level coach that also inspires their players to move forward versus one who controls, super, super important to recognize that. I love the 5 people dinner concept and masterminds as well. One other thing that was said there is, yes, constructive criticism is necessary, but there's no but to constructive criticism in entrepreneurship and vision life. Constructive criticism is the medicine. It's the vitamins. It's the way to figure out what you're doing. And when we can let go of the negativity associated with criticism and we can embrace it and realize, wow, this is fostering me to be my best self. I'm not talking about toxic behavior. Right. I'm not talking about people who are abusive. I'm not talking about people who are controlling. I'm talking about people who can look at opportunities with you and help you see how to get out of your own way, which is very hard to do. If I, as an individual, am looking at criticism as some type of enemy of my success or enemy of my own state of being or well-being. So it's very important that as visionary leaders, we learn to embrace even the negative criticism with the strength of a lion, right? It just because a lamb baws at me, or a gazelle, tries to make a noise at me to scare me. If I'm a lion, there's nothing that's going to happen to me with the hyena even coming at me. Like, good luck. So it's very important, visionaries. You're building something amazing. Go and seek criticism from people who love and care about you. And
Yeah.
if they love and care about you, you'll feel it. Craig, feel free to double down or contrast that.
Well, no, I was just, everything you said is spot on, brilliant. Don't surround yourself with yes people who are just going to tell you what you want to hear. You need to have those people in your life who have the courage and the respect and love for you to tell it the way it is. And
Yes.
if they, they may not necessarily be right. Say, well, I don't think you should be doing this, that, and everything. Like, but my vision has me and my guts telling me this is the right way to go. That's always great. That's just advice. But what's important about that mastermind group that was so important to my growth, not only just as a person, but in business and other endeavors, was that the honesty of, well, I'm thinking about doing this. It's like, ooh, I don't think that's a good idea. And talk about it. We what was nice about just having three of us is, in an hour you get 20 minutes just to focus on yourself, or if necessary,
Right.
take a full hour if some things are, on fire and you need some massive attention. They'll give it to you because of that respect, because of the love, because they know when they need it, it's going to be there for them. So just to double down on what you just said, constructive criticism is important, but not abuse and not toxic, really, where they're always coming down. You did this wrong. You don't want that, but you also don't want everybody just to nod and say, yeah, just so they can get on to their thing.
It's
Have them
pattern of word choice too, right?
Yeah.
So you got masterminds. Make sure, again, those people. I would highly recommend making sure those people align with the principles of healthy boundaries. And we can recognize if they constantly tell you what to do or not to do, that shows the signs of somebody who is controlling in nature versus somebody who says, tell me more about that, right? And figures out a little bit more about the depth of it, and then says, well, if that's what you feel called to do, then you might do it. And here's another perspective. Right. Here's another way of looking at it. Have you considered these potential obstacles? Right. It's because if I had told, if I had a mastermind with somebody and they're like, hey, I'm writing a book on a napkin, and I'm excited for it. And I said, well, you should never write a book on a napkin, I don't know if you should do that. I could have very well discouraged J.K. Rowling from writing Harry Potter and becoming a billionaire. So having that knowledge, to not control the actions of others and to recognize how to bring people into a mastermind environment that can be supportive. And as Craig talked about, we're going to circle back to this after the break, not immediately, but hopefully in the conversation. I love to talk about how to recognize yes men personalities, because it's not the person who comes to you and just says yes to everything. We have very subtle ways as individuals of influence and manipulating. And when we learn those, we can either learn to use them for good or to use them for bad. And if you can learn how to detect them, you can see who's coming to you and who's coming at you in life. And I have a feeling Craig's got some very good insights related to that as well. So we'll be right back and we'll dive into Craig Meriwether's vision, talk more about anxiety leadership and putting those to the test. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Calame. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Calame, founder and CEO of First Class Business, and I'm excited to have Craig Meriwether on today because we're going to be talking about a lot of very powerful elements related to anxiety and leadership. I love the TED Talk. If you probably look up TED Talk anxiety, you will find an amazing TED Talk. I bet it's the first one that pops up. But the gentleman talks about how anxiety is not a disease. It is actually something that is active within all of us, and learning to work with it, it's actually strength that protects us, not something that we should deplete and kill. So I love that concept. And as leaders in the world, if you're leading multiple people, the more people that you're leading, the more likely you have a compound reality of people who are going to be facing decisions and facing reactionary situations and anxiety. So this is a super important skill to hone in and talk about and understand as a leader. Before we dive in too deep, though, with that, I want to make sure to give you some other resources. Some of them that I find a lot of fun. One is Brain Glue by James Bond. This book, Brain Glue, Jack Canfield said you'd have to be an idiot as an entrepreneur not to buy this book. It does an excellent job of helping entrepreneurs, marketers understand how to make their message emotional. A lot of us go into the logic. I'm not going to go into it right now. It's about helping people feel really, really attached to your message, and the book does a much better job than I can. Then there's Dave Morrow with the Hard to Kill podcast and hardtokill.org. He's helping 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds collectively, and I have absolutely enjoyed Dave's leadership. I'm in the program as well. He expanded it to civilians so that all of us can join into the community. It's a free community, and you can go in there and get inspired to start getting jacked, if you will. I had no mentality like that before going into this group. I wasn't even working out for pretty much the last 8 years. Now I'm up to 125 push-ups per day, and I just added on to my weekly habits of doing 40 oblique crunches. And somehow he has Miyagi'd me into being my best self physically. I highly recommend checking out what he's up to and building that community out. And if you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area, he's at that Military Influencer Expo presenting right now. Go check that out. Lastly, there's the Water Project. We're not affiliated with the Water Project, but I'm a huge fan of what their mission is and their transparency for how they give back. I had never had to consider what it's like to not have clean drinking water in my life. So when I found this and started to learn about it, I literally forced myself to say, you know what, I don't feel emotionally attached to this yet, but let me check it out. And what I saw was these kids, they celebrate water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day. And there's millions of people out there who don't have access to clean drinking water. What the Water Project does is you can choose which project you want to donate to, and then you get to see that project come to fruition. They send you the before and after pictures of what they've done to help these communities build what's called a sand dam or a borehole well. And they specifically focus on communities that are really, really hard for people to get to, because those communities are less likely to ever get the help that they provide. And I think all of that is just super awesome. So if you're in a position to be able to give back, then absolutely go ahead and do that. If you're not, my request is just take like 2 minutes, probably, maybe 30 seconds to just meditate and think, who would I know that might be interested in hearing about this? And then send them the link. You never know how far the ripple effect of doing good will go. And we got 8 billion people to help. So it's time for us to get up and do that, especially those of us who have the benefit of rocking the mic or listening to one. So without further ado, Craig Meriwether, welcome to Vision Pros Live.
Thank you, Jackson. Just got on Amazon and ordered Brain Glue. I think if Canfield, he's one of my, we were just talking about mentors and things. He's somebody I've been following for years and years. And so if Jack Canfield says, read this book, I'm going to go read the book.
Smart man. I think it's a wise decision to listen to people who've sold 130 million books worldwide. He knows a thing or two. He literally expressed in the video that I watched on that how upset he was that he did not think of this concept first, and like didn't get it. So, and enjoy the book. Definitely let me know, what you enjoy the most about it. And I will too, because I'm also in the very beginning stages of listening to that Audible, and the first story made me laugh out loud. Thanks for diving in with me on that. Those of you who are listening in, take some notes on this show. I think we're going to be covering some frameworks that can really help you unlock some things that often go overlooked, or we often assume we already know enough about. And I think Craig's going to bring up some frameworks that can really help us all level up. So I'll be doing that myself. Craig, before we dive into the frameworks, what is your vision for those that you serve?
My vision for them is to learn that they can stand in the power of their own strength, and they have the ability to heal and to change. In my humble opinion, change happens in an instant. There may be some lead up to that. There may be some setup to that. But in the work I've done with people over the years, change happens in an instant. You're either a smoker or you're a non-smoker. It's not 3 or 4 months of maybe yes, maybe no, kind of, sort of, not really. It's you're a smoker, you're not a smoker. You're holding on to that hurt and pain, clutching it, or you've let it go and you dropped it. And so if people could understand how powerful they are and have the ability to use their own unconscious part of mind, subconscious part of mind, to use basically what they call the placebo effect. Mind will heal the body, not only just emotional issues, mindset issues, limiting beliefs, but physical issues. If you're holding on to pain in your low back or your neck, or you're getting migraines or headaches, or you have digestive issues, irritable bowel syndrome, a good chunk of that is due to emotional issues. And yes, there's also always sickness and illness and virus and injuries and things like this. And of course, take me to the emergency room when I'm in a car accident or my appendix is about to burst. But some of these issues are a direct result of the pain and the hurt we've been holding on to. And if you realize you have the power to let it go and to heal, and it doesn't take a long time, that is very empowering, very empowering.
That's huge. I love the way that you put this too. You said, my vision is to help people stand in the power of their own strength. And I think it's, again, something that if you breeze past it, you don't really internalize what that means. You can miss the majesty of understanding that one, if that was really true, right? If we got there to that aspect, we could let go of our expectations.
Yeah.
And Shakespeare says expectations are the root of all heartache. And so stay with me, everybody, because we live in a world where expectations, are glorified, even though it's a synonym of entitlement. And so if I expect my wife to do the dishes, right, or I expect her to clean the house, right, if I expect her to take care of all of our household room, well, that's a brand new marriage that is pretty much destined for the divorce track, or to be extremely unhappy. And when we truly stand in the power of our own strength, we don't rely on other people to be our saviors in any aspect of life. Not that we're not willing to exercise humility and receive help or receive people who can do things for us, but it becomes a bonus factor that we're always grateful for. And that took me far too long in life to figure out. What are your thoughts on that, Craig?
Yeah, I think that's really part of it. It's those expectations that we have of other people. And I think the big part of the frustration comes when we don't even let them know that we have expectations of them. And yeah, I know you're talking about the dishes and vacuuming and things like that, but sometimes just expectations. Can you sit and listen to me? Or can we go and take a walk and be together? In the busyness of life and the extraordinariness of where we've come to just in the last, 25 years since.
I can listen to you. I'm listening right now, Craig. I mean, just kidding. Go ahead. Sorry, I had to do it.
Well, and that's a great example, because even, are you really listening, or are you just kind of waiting for yourself to jump in? And I know you're being facetious there, but I think a lot of people, and that's why I find networking.
Well, I'm not reacting. I'm responding. Right. Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, I think you and I need to get into some relationship counseling. That's why I find, and I think a lot of us find networking events so frustrating and maybe a little bit of a time waster, because you're not there to meet and create relationships. You're there to pitch yourself, and nobody wants to hear your pitch, and you don't want to hear their pitch. And so I think when you have the expectation, especially if you're in a serious relationship, a long-term relationship, committed relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship or even a business relationship. If you have expectations of what a person is supposed to be doing, do they know that? Because they may be real happy to fulfill those expectations, but if they don't know you have them, so that's where a lot of this honesty and vulnerability to sit down and say, hey, I need your attention. I need you to focus on me because I had a really bad day today, and I need you to listen to me. But
Great.
if
Tell me
they're
more about
busy
that.
in their own minds and they're running around, getting their own life together, and they got that PowerPoint to get done, and they got to do the dishes, and the kids got to get to bed, and you're stewing and frustrated because your partner isn't paying attention to you. Do they know you need attention? And that's where the vulnerability comes in. And so it's all about just one day at a time. How much can you grow today? And be honest with yourself as well, not only with the other people, and what you need.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
You mentioned, having a bad day. Tell me more about that. Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Exactly.
right. So we talked about
Yep.
I reacted on purpose, guys. It was plain. Right. I jumped in for that respond because we think that's the highest level. And I had a great family therapist who knocked me off my high horse.
Yes.
Right. Because I was in this counseling session. My marriage was on the rocks. And I wasn't reacting. I was responding. I was very much hearing what she was saying, and I was responding to it. And he said there's a third level, and it's called listening to understand. And I mean, he's about soft as he could push me off that horse, but I hit the ground. I was like, oh, what? There's another level. I was like, okay. So I heard the words that she said, but I didn't really understand what she meant. And I assumed that I did. And we all know in English, assume what assumptions make. And I love that. The ASSUNME, it makes an ass out of you and it makes an ass out of me when I'm the one who jumps to assumptions. I'd write that framework down, by the way, if I didn't know it, because it has saved me from myself many times. And sometimes when I find myself in a travesty with somebody, it's because I jumped into an assumption. So Craig, what's the worst leadership experience that you've ever had?
Well, I guess it kind of comes back to what we were just talking about. It's the having expectations, leadership having expectations of you, but not informing you of what those expectations are. And so you're thinking, oh, I'm going home at 5 o'clock on Friday. And they're thinking, oh my God, sales aren't where they're supposed to be. And, the leadership is worried about even making payroll. You don't know that. And they're expecting everybody, okay, because they're going to work all weekend long. They're wanting you to work all weekend long. And that's where that frustration gets, where at 4:59, they're like, why are you grabbing your coat? It's like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. It's time to go home, be with my family. It's like, oh, we were staying all night.
I told you we got to finish that project. The Great Wall of China is not done, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, certainly out of the 500 emails you got today, you read the one where I said that everybody's staying this weekend. And so in terms of, I mean, it goes right into what we were just talking about. If leadership isn't providing you with what they expect and their expectations of you and your work, and that may change, that may change over time. You may be hired and you're doing your job, and as the company grows, if you're in a company that started off with, 10 employees, and now there's 100 employees, if not 1,000 employees, the expectations of you may have changed significantly. Have those been addressed? Has anybody even come to talk with you about that? And so in terms of leadership experiences that I've had in the past, and I hope in terms of when I've been in leadership positions, I've hopefully made my expectations known in a clear manner.
I like what you're saying about it.
But in terms of whether, again, what we just mentioned it, whether a romantic relationship or a relationship business, or just even within family, that family dynamic of older brother, younger brother, older sister, younger sister, mom and dad, grandparents, what are the expectations within that framework?
Huge.
Yeah.
Well, and that word expectation. I'll tell you what, if you want to if you want to ruin most of your relationships in life, follow the advice I'm about to share. Which is to let go of expectations, because expectations are a toxic vice, and move to a word called aspirations. But
Mm.
the benefit of moving and ruining all of my inauthentic relationships, all of the superficial ones that are following me, but moving towards people who have a higher state of communication, that have a more appropriate alignment of balance and appreciation for life, is that the relationships I then gravitate towards are relationships that are absolutely golden.
Yeah.
So I as a leader strive so hard. I have expectations, absolutely. And I strive very hard to kill my expectations and to say, you know what, I am going to be grateful for the outcome, and I'm going to give my best effort. And I'm going to strive to inspire my team members to give their best efforts. The byproduct of that has been a team that does not play on Facebook, that does not waste time, that does not quite quit, that does not check out on Friday evening, on Friday early. A team that shows up sometimes on their days off, not prompted by me. I want them to go do their balance, but it is amazing to see people who usually clock in early and clock out a little bit late. And my constant job, my responsibility is to constantly tell them, hey, please, please don't leave late. You've got a family that's counting on you to be there. And if you make this a habit, who are they eventually going to not like?
Yeah.
Me. They're going to want you to find another job. And I love working with you, and you're amazing. And so I don't want our work-life balance to get in the way of a great thing. So let's try to unplug. I know we wanted to get it done, and nobody's going to die. And I don't work in an ER, so I'm fortunate that I get to do that. But yes, that would be the next level up, in my opinion, is for all of us to actually look at, what are my expectations causing disappointment in my life? Is there anything good that comes out of having an expectation not fulfilled, and the feeling associated with that? I've never been uplifted by my expectation or somebody else's expectations on me.
Right.
So what's the best leadership experience that you've ever had?
The best leadership experiences I've had in the past is when I'm supported and encouraged. And I think you just get a great example of it. And you're specifically talking about focusing on balance and making sure they have that balanced time, and family is important. And so having a leadership that recognizes that you are a human being and a person with a life, and it's not all just about the bottom line and the spreadsheet at the end of the month and the way it's looking, but also having leadership because assumingly I'm hired out of the maybe 100 people that applied and the 5 or 6 that were interviewed, because you saw something within me that you felt could help your company, help your business improve, grow, and let me do that. And I think the best leadership experiences are allowing you to do that even while making mistakes. And I think Steve Jobs, in one of those, you see those little blurbs on Instagram or Facebook sometimes
Yeah.
of things that Steve Jobs talks about. And he talks about, getting frustrated about somebody did something, they did it wrong. And now, but instead of him going to fix it himself, he says, let them go through it and let them figure out how to fix it themselves. Yes, that might take some time. That might
Right.
take a month or two for them to figure out what they did wrong, how they did it, and how they can improve it. Now they know how to do it, instead of you constantly going in and cleaning up the mess. And so having the respect that, one, I can do the job, and encouraging me and supporting me in that, but also, okay, yeah, I'm going to stumble and fall, and yeah, I may fall off the horse and hit hard. But if you allow me to pick myself up and realize how maybe I did that wrong, or I turned the wrong direction, then I'm not going to do it again because I learned from my mistakes. Yeah. And so it's
Fantastic.
almost like leadership is like, it's not in your face telling you what to do all the time. Do it my way, you hired me for a reason.
Yep.
And yes, I might not do it your way, but I'm going
Exactly.
to get the work done and I'm going to do it well.
Empowering our people.
Yeah.
It's a really hard concept to implement, and to do for most of us, especially those of us who are alpha, in nature, and like we want things to be done a certain way. But most people who are en route to being an alpha are still very much beta, and how they go about it. And that's that discipline that's that like inferiority complex of having to control or trying to make things happen a certain way versus a true alpha that does exactly what you're talking about, allowing the space for things to happen, knowing there's slight consequences, but the long-term travesty and consequences of doing everything yourself or
Mm.
forcing the issue is far more catastrophic.
Yeah.
This was the last opportunity, Craig, that you had to share a powerful lesson.
Yeah.
What powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
Uh, and this was something I learned a while ago. It was actually just a story. I think I might have read in a book or heard somebody else say. But this manager of a big business was talking about his experience of growing his company. And what was interesting is he lived down the street from a vice president of a company who had been managing companies for decades and was maybe even close to retirement. And what he would see this guy at barbecues and neighborhood gatherings and get-togethers, and they would talk business. And this he was managing a smaller company that was growing, and he was doing a lot of the work. And the manager, who had so many decades of experience, would pull him aside and say, "Look, you're doing all this work. I see you come home late on Friday. I see you not, going to work on Saturday and Sunday. You're a manager. That's for you to manage other people. You're going to grow this company, and you're going to go from 10 employees to 100 employees in about a year. You can't continue doing everybody's job. And so from now on, you're going to leave at 8 a.m. and you're going to be back home at 5 p.m. and you're going to be home on the weekends." And this new manager promised that he would do that, and he would look out the window and wait until he saw the other guy leave for his job. Then he would grab his briefcase and get to his car and drive to work. And he knew I got to be home by 5, because he wanted to be home in his car in the driveway for when the other guy came on to see what he was doing. And that was the best thing that ever happened to him, because he grew the company to 100, 200 employees. Of course, he can't do everybody's job, but he was there to manage. And that was very inspiring to me, in that if I need somebody, I'm just at the moment just kind of, I hire, consultants to help with graphic design or maybe podcast editing or recording editing, things like this. I don't have employees per se, but if I do need that extra help, I let them do that. I don't edit the recording and then give it to them so they can tighten up the recording. I say, you do what you need to do in the way you need to do it. And that saves me all the time, so I can start focusing on something else.
Correct. Huge, awesome, powerful principle. The E-Myth does an excellent job of breaking down how to do that as well. It's, again, that book changed my life, and helped me level up in big ways as a leader, because a lot of times we do try to do it all. Right. We try to be the one who gets it all done. But the second phase of that is we hire people, and a lot of times we hire them and we move way out of the way and we just let them go nuts, with what they're doing. And in the worst case scenario, we actually hire an absolute rock star. But the rock star continues to do more and more and more and more. And they usually don't set healthy boundaries. So they usually end up doing far too much while we enjoy that process. Well, what happens when that rock star then leaves because they felt taken advantage of? Then you end up with a huge amount of success thanks to their contributions. But now you have no idea what procedures, resources, and templates they followed. So the implosions that can occur in business are many. There's so many different variables and variations of what that can look like.
Right.
It's very important to know how to develop the personnel skills to be able to empower people the right way, position them for success, and continuing to magnify our own leadership. With that said, frameworks, Craig, we did promise it. And so I'm excited about it. Go ahead. I'd love to to have just one framework for you for either leadership or managing anxiety. Either way, I know it's going to level us up. So,
Well, what I like to tell people is what's strongest within your mind is what you practice over and over again. It's what you do over and over again. And of course, whatever you practice, you're going to get better at. If you're learning how to play the piano or the guitar, if you're learning dance, you're learning martial arts. You only get a black belt in judo or taekwondo if you're practicing over and over again. We see this with little kids. We saw it ourselves when we learned how to walk or ride a bicycle. What you do over and over again is what you're going to get better at. What's strongest in your mind is what you do over and over again. So what if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing fear? What if you're practicing being angry? I know people who are the calmest, most peaceful people, most pacifistic, if that's even a word, kind of people you will ever meet. And yet you get them behind the wheel of a car on a freeway, and the rage that comes out, the anger, the curse words, and because they have trained themselves that while in this little capsule of a piece of metal with their hands on a steering wheel, sitting in this kind of strange little seat with a seatbelt and moving their foot from the accelerator to the gas pedal, puts them into a certain state. Unfortunately, it's a state of anger and rage. And by practicing that, they're literally anchoring this kind of environment, even to the music that may be playing on the radio or through their phone or whatever, to this experience. And this experience has trained them to get enraged. And so maybe what in your life do you notice that the minute you realize this event is going to happen, and which may be Thanksgiving dinner with family, or that get together with family, that all of a sudden the anxiety or the anger or the frustration starts up. Maybe it's not family, maybe it's work, maybe it's something else. But what you practice, you get better at. But what's fascinating about this work, it doesn't take weeks, I should say, it doesn't take years and months to change. It may just take weeks, because what you practice, you get better at. And so if you're noticing an aspect of yourself, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's fear, maybe it's anger, maybe it's overwhelm or worry or something else. If you're noticing an aspect of yourself, a mindset issue, you're allowed to change that. Now, it does take some practice. It does take some work. But again, it doesn't take months and years to change your state of mind or even state of body. You start rewiring your brain in less than a week. They've showed that through multiple research studies. And the University College of London states that it takes 66 days to create a habit. That meaning that whatever that activity or thought process or mindset or even emotional state you want to create has become an automatic habit within 2 months, 2.5 months. So by practicing, and depending on what it is you want to work on, by practicing multiple times a day, even if just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes over there, you can start rewiring your brain, creating new neural pathways within your brain in less than a week, and have a fully formed habit within about 2 months. That's pretty extraordinary. But it's that thing, you have to do it. It's like some of the addiction kind of programs say, the processes work, but you got to work the processes. Just like you were talking about a little bit ago with your physical health. I mean, you didn't start with 100 push-ups.
Well, I would. It's funny though. I don't agree with the timelines, because timelines are arbitrary depending on the person. But so the general realities that exist out there, they're important benchmarks. But for general statistics, my life was supposed to be an absolute failure. I was raised by my single mom in a broken home, experienced all the different types of abuse you can. And so there's all these, so you grow up learning that, okay, well, you're supposed to be the failure. And I knew that I needed to live a different way in order to get different results. And so I'm 100% in agreement with you that what I love that you said, where are you practicing those aspects? So when I got in my car and one day, I don't even remember what prompted me, I just realized, like, you know what? I sit forward when I drive, and I'm like, it's go time. And I don't believe in the defensive driving. I believed in proactive driving. And so it's like, you can be mad all you want, but see ya.
Yeah.
I'm weaving in and out, making sure I'm getting to where I go. But I changed that years ago. And one day I just decided, I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to lay my seat way back, and scoot it way forward. And I'm going to drive in a super chill position. And I find myself often going, you guys are gonna hate me now, under the speed limit. Uh, I find myself saying, you know what? If I'm gonna be stuck in traffic, I've got, I've got Pandora, I've got TED Talks, I've got all sorts of things I can do. It's no different than being in my office.
Right.
Why not just enjoy this process? And then, I'm a little bit aggressive. So when somebody gets upset at me for whatever reason, and you can see him honking, you can see him yelling. I like to go like this. I put my ear up to the window. I don't know. Maybe somebody will get shot for doing it, but I like to just tease them and be like, I can't hear you. And I don't have anxiety when I drive. And so there's lots of things but we don't have to rely on the timelines. And we are out of time. But one thing that you also shared, you talked about you're a smoker or you're not. And it made me really happy because as much as I love the AA programs and what they do for people and the programs like that, so many people fall into this trap of permanently label themselves. And those programs encourage you to do that in some aspect. And I think it's beyond unhealthy and stupid. So there's this movie, The Gambler, and in it, Mark Wahlberg, I'm going to ruin the movie for anybody who's listening, by the way. But when he goes to the end and he finally finishes his last gamble, and he has destroyed his life and everybody's life in the process pretty much. And he finishes his last gamble, but at the end of the movie, he ends up giving that money to the people who he owes it to, and he walks away with nothing. And one of them wants to give him $100,000, and he tells the guy, F you. And he had just gotten this lesson from the guy that you should have enough money in your life. Like you arrive when you get to the point where you can say F you to somebody and just move away because you have the money. Well, Mark Wahlberg in the end of the movie says, by the way, I'm not a gambler. Then he walks away from the $100,000 and says, F you, and he's got nothing, right? Nothing but his relationship that he's going back to. And the whole movie is actually about grief and overcoming the loss of his grandfather that just disrupted his life for a specific time. But he knew in his heart that he was not a gambler. He was not what he was doing to cope with whatever it was he had going on. So we are chameleons. We have the ability to evolve and to not be limited by some label that somebody else puts on us. And we do have the ability to create habits instantly. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying I have the framework for all of you. All I'm saying is, please don't beat yourself up if you're like, well, I'm not at day 66 yet. And looking at things from this scientific perspective, but the formulas that you just blessed us with, Craig, where are you in these circumstances? I'm absolutely going to be applying that and saying, you know what, where am I still not coming out as my best self? Because that's robbing me of my best opportunities.
Yeah. I love what you just said, because you said, I'm not there yet. And so that implies within your unconscious mind that you will get there. Whether that's tomorrow, next week, or next month, you're going to get there. And you've already programmed yourself. And that's what's so beautiful about a lot of the work I do. It's not so much that I have to hypnotize people. We're already hypnotized. That's why we feel the anger.
I was going to say, you already did it to me.
Hypnotizing people. But by hypnotizing yourself to say, this is going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. And so that implies to every cell of your body that's going to get done. And it's pretty powerful.
It's amazingly powerful if we will put in the work, if we will get after it. So Vision Pros, we hope to get after it. And we're super grateful that you all joined us today. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision.